let me tell you guys, I wanted to backtrack a little bit because we talked about this yesterday, but because yesterday was Music Monday, so we did a music-related start where we talked about lyrics, which was really cool. I enjoyed our lyrics conversation, and some of you have since checked out some of the music I talked about and were tweeting me about it, which is really cool. I think that's really neat. I like having a Music Monday where we kind of divert a little bit and focus on music for a little bit. That's a lot of fun. So what I want to ask you guys, we talked about what happened over at the DNC regarding superdelegates. And I said that it's not enough, but I wanted to pose the question to you guys. Does anybody feel like it was enough? Essentially what's going on, superdelegates cannot vote, or they do not get a superdelegate vote in the first round, and then if it escalates and a second round is required, then they step in. And as Donna Brazil pointed out on Twitter, they still have a say in setting the menu. They still have a seat at the table. So, and I tried to, I tried to give a fair assessment, and I did say it was more than I expected. I expected a lot less. I expected just some kind of number reduction. The fact that they actually took them out on one level, a little more than I expected, but still nowhere near enough, and still, the chair has power to step in, stuff like that. So it's nowhere near enough, in my opinion, and the Democratic Party at this point is arguably nothing more than a grift. I think it's definitively little more than a grift. And I think at this point the argument can be made it's nothing more than a grift. And I support progressives that are Dem entering. I do think it's good when we see some victories. However, there's a lot of concerns because we're putting all this energy into Dem entering, and we may be entering a house that's completely set up against us and is going to prevent any type of real progressive change from happening. And it's kind of like you see a band, right? Like, let's say you had a band, and that band put all of their energy into getting signed to a major label. Like, they're like, we just got to get signed to a major label. I know if we get signed to a major label, all our problems are solved. And maybe they've seen a little bit of success. Maybe Capitol took a meeting with them. And we're like, hey, we kind of like your song. That one song's kind of catchy. Your sound's okay. But that band is still... But they haven't gotten a yes yet. They haven't gotten a record contract or anything close to it. They got really not much to show for it. But they're like, we gotta get signed to this major label. And they're very smart, and they're very savvy, and they write great songs. And they have a lot to offer the world. But they put all their energy into getting signed to a major label. Meanwhile, they could have spent all that time and money and resources and energy and mental output and physical output. They could have spent all of that building a following, touring. And they might have built something sustainable where they can tour and draw in every city. But instead, they have zero draw because they've put all their energy into getting signed to that major label. That's kind of how I feel about our political situation right now. We're putting all this energy, and that's why I'm scared of, or not scared, but that's why I'm more weary of Dem entering versus just starting a brand new party. And, maybe it's the punk rock ethos that kind of fuels that for me. I mean, I've always been a DIY guy when it comes to music. When it comes to my own career, look, nobody gave me permission to start Get Your News On with Ron. I did it on my own. Over at the Jimmy Dore Show, Jimmy didn't wait for a producer to step in and say, yes, we want to produce this show. He started doing it himself. And I think it's a similar notion here. I know that it's not a complete parallel comparison to compare a political structure to music, but I think the theme is absolutely the same. So that being said, I'm not fooled by this move by the Democratic Party, and I think it's time for a new party. Not so we can have a third option, but so we can have a second one. All right, let me see what you guys are saying. Maybe some of you disagree with me. Maybe some of you are thinking it's enough. CG says it's not enough. Exactly what Donna Brazil said. The two parties exist to funnel your time and energy into a useless endeavor. You are absolutely right, Ron, Karen says. Superdelegates would be pretty down far. Jordan says superdelegates would be pretty far down on my list of problems with the DNC at this point, honestly. I would say they're up there. I mean, there's a lot of problems. I'm with you there. But I would say they're a pretty significant one. If it wasn't for them, Bernie Sanders would probably be president. I think that's pretty significant. Chris Swan says, agreed, DIY. I thought this was Get Your Groove On with the Guns of Brighton, Craig Robb says. Anyone that makes a Clash reference, you win. What's up, Daniel? How are you? Welcome. So does anybody think it was enough? It's fine if nobody does. Balthazar, the Dems are the sinking Titanic, bailing water with bucket stalls, the inevitable. Rip the Band-Aid off. Well, that's the other thing. You know, going back to my band analogy, a lot of times if, let's say a band puts all their energy into building a following and touring and releasing their own music, sometimes when you do that and you're successful at it, a label comes to you. A major label comes to you. There's a similar thing here. I truly do think that if a new party started to be built and there were some big names that got attached to it, someone like a Bernie Sanders or a Nina Turner or a Tulsi Gabbard or a Ro Khanna, or the list goes on, and we started building a viable new party, I think the Democrats would have to either bend the knee or accept their fate as they're going bye-bye. Because now the progressives are elsewhere, all of them. They're all elsewhere. And now you have the Democrats fighting for conservative votes. People make it out like the idea of a third party would split the progressive vote. I think that's mixed up. I think a progressive third party would split the conservative votes between Democrats and Republicans. And Democrats have tried to do that in the past, and it has failed. It has failed miserably. So they are dead in the water. So they either bend the knee completely, or they're done. So that's why I think we should put all of our energy into a new party. Ryan says, if you build it, they will come. Chromatic Tree, Ron, how do you feel about multi-member districts? To me, that seems to be the best way to get more effective parties. You know, what I want first, and yeah, I mean, I understand some of the benefits of that. I think our biggest thing, though, is having a different voting structure and having more choices. And I really think that needs to take a lot of energy. So, I guess my kind of short answer is, I'm certainly not against it, but I think we need to have just better representation in our politics first. I think that's a bigger thing. And Sybil says it's not enough. You need to eliminate them completely. Joseph points out a progressive third party at this point in time will split the progressive vote simply because a lot of them are still going with Dem Enter. If we united behind the Dem Extra strategy, that can be avoided. That's a good point. That is a fair point. I'd like to think if we had a viable third party, a lot of those progressives would come over. But, yeah, part of the reason we do have different takes on things right now, and that's certainly part of the problem.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your